Welcome to our 2-hour journey through the fascinating history of Europe. From its early formations to the rise and fall of great empires, Europe's past is a tapestry of intricate events, influential figures, and pivotal moments that have shaped the modern world. Let's embark on this epic voyage through time. Imagine standing on a cliff overlooking a vast, untamed landscape stretching as far as the eye can see. This is Europe in its infancy. A land of wild, untrodden beauty where early humans roamed freely. Our story begins here, in prehistoric Europe, a time when survival was a daily battle and every day brought new discoveries and challenges. As we traverse through millennia, we'll witness the dawn of civilization, the birth of democracy, and the rise of empires that would leave an indelible mark on history. Close your eyes and picture yourself walking the ancient streets of Athens, where the air buzzes with intellectual energy. Here, Socrates challenges young minds in the agora, questioning the very nature of knowledge and virtue. The Parthenon stands majestically, a symbol of the glory of Athens and the birthplace of democracy. This is where Western philosophy was born and where ideas that still influence our world today were first conceived. Now, feel the ground tremble beneath your feet as we march alongside Roman legions, their disciplined advance a testament to their military prowess. Imagine the sprawling Roman Empire at its zenith, stretching from the windswept shores of Britain to the sun-baked sands of North Africa. The grandeur of Rome is reflected in its monumental architecture, its intricate road networks, and its complex legal system, many aspects of which form the foundation of our modern society. Our journey continues through the Middle Ages, a time of castles and cathedrals, knights and crusades. Picture towering fortresses dotting the landscape, symbols of feudal power and protection. Envision bustling marketplaces where merchants trade exotic goods from distant lands. The medieval period, with its mix of chivalry, faith, and daily strife, sets the stage for a complex and vibrant tapestry of life that would evolve into the Renaissance. And what a renaissance it was! Envision the vibrant world of rebirth in art and knowledge. Step into the studios of Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo, where masterpieces are being crafted, blending scientific curiosity with artistic genius. This era pulled Europe out of the darkness and into a new age of discovery and innovation. It was a time when explorers dared to venture into uncharted waters, forever changing the world by linking continents and cultures. Feel the pulse of the Enlightenment as we move forward, a time when reason and science began to challenge tradition and authority. The intellectual fervor of this period sparked revolutions that reshaped nations and ideas that laid the groundwork for the modern age. Philosophers like Voltaire and Rousseau debated the nature of government and individual rights, planting the seeds of democracy and human rights that continue to influence us today. The 19th century roars to life with the thunder of industry. Imagine the transformation of societies as steam engines chug through landscapes. Factories rise and cities swell with new populations. Nationalism sweeps across Europe, uniting some regions while tearing others apart. The political map of Europe is redrawn, and new ideologies and movements emerge, leading to significant changes in the social and political fabric of the continent. As we approach the 20th century, brace yourself for the turmoil of 2 world wars. These devastating conflicts reshaped Europe, leading to the rise and fall of totalitarian regimes and the struggle for peace and unity that culminated in the creation of the European Union. The post-war period saw Europe divided by the Iron Curtain during the Cold War, but also witnessed moments of profound unity and cooperation as nations worked together to rebuild and forge a peaceful future. Through each segment of this journey, we'll delve deep into the lives of those who lived through these transformative times. We'll hear their stories, their triumphs, and their tragedies, gaining a deeper understanding of how their experiences have shaped the Europe we know today. This isn't just a history lesson. It's a voyage through time, an exploration of the human spirit, and a celebration of the resilience and creativity that have driven us forward. So, let's set sail on this epic journey through time as we uncover the layers of history that have crafted the rich tapestry of Europe. Buckle up and prepare to be transported across centuries, witnessing the unfolding drama of human civilization in all its glory and complexity. Our journey begins in prehistoric Europe, a time when the continent was a vast wilderness, home to early humans who roamed its forests and plains. Picture the rugged landscape of Ice Age Europe, where groups of hunter-gatherers lived off the land, adapting to the harsh climate and the challenges of survival. These early humans, our distant ancestors, were resourceful and innovative, developing tools and techniques that would lay the groundwork for future civilizations. Imagine a world covered in ice and snow, where survival depended on the ability to hunt and gather food. Early humans, such as Neanderthals and Homo sapiens, inhabited this harsh environment. They lived in small, mobile groups, moving with the seasons to follow game and gather edible plants. These early Europeans crafted stone tools, built shelters, and used fire to cook food and stay warm. Life was incredibly challenging, but these early humans showed remarkable adaptability. They developed a deep understanding of their environment, knowing where to find food and how to hunt large animals like mammoths and reindeer. Cave paintings in places like Lascaux, France, provide a glimpse into their world, depicting animals they hunted and possibly rituals related to their survival and beliefs. As the Ice Age receded, around 10,000 BC, Europe experienced significant climatic changes. Warmer temperatures led to the retreat of glaciers and the expansion of forests and grasslands. This shift allowed early humans to explore new ways of living. The Neolithic period, beginning around 7000 BC, marked a revolutionary change, the development of agriculture. This transformation didn't happen overnight. It was a gradual process, likely influenced by climatic changes and interactions with neighboring regions where agriculture had already begun. Early Europeans started to domesticate plants such as wheat and barley, and animals like sheep, goats, and cattle. This shift from hunting and gathering to farming allowed them to settle in one place and build permanent communities. The fertile lands of the Danube Valley and the Aegean coast became centers of early agricultural activity. Settlements like Atoll Ik in modern-day Turkey and Lipinski Vir in Serbia exemplify these early farming communities. These sites reveal a complex society with organized living spaces, storage facilities for surplus crops, and evidence of early trade. Agriculture brought about profound social changes. The ability to produce surplus food led to population growth and the development of social hierarchies. Some individuals became leaders or specialists, such as toolmakers, weavers, and religious figures. This specialization allowed for more complex and efficient societies. One of the most remarkable aspects of the Neolithic period is the construction of monumental architecture. Sites like Stonehenge in England and the temples of Malta demonstrate the advanced engineering skills and spiritual beliefs of these early Europeans. These structures, often aligned with astronomical events, suggest a deep connection between the people and their environment. Stonehenge, for example, was built in several stages over many centuries, involving the transport of massive stones from distant locations. The purpose of these structures is still debated, but they likely served as ceremonial or religious sites, possibly related to solar and lunar cycles. Around 3200 BC, Europe entered the Bronze Age, a period marked by significant technological and social advancements. The discovery and utilization of bronze, an alloy of copper and tin, revolutionized tool and weapon making. This new material was stronger and more durable than stone, allowing for more efficient agriculture, improved weaponry, and elaborate artistry. The Bronze Age saw the emergence of extensive trade networks. Early Europeans traded raw materials like tin and copper, as well as finished goods, with neighboring regions. This exchange of goods, ideas, and technologies fostered cultural interactions and the spread of innovations across the continent. In the Aegean region, two significant civilizations emerged during the Bronze Age: the Minoans on the island of Crete and the Mycenaeans on mainland Greece. The Minoans, known for their sophisticated palaces, vibrant frescoes, and extensive trade networks, created a flourishing society centered on the island of Crete. The palace at Knossos, with its intricate layout and advanced infrastructure, is a testament to their architectural and administrative prowess. The Mycenaeans, whose culture was immortalized in Homer's epics, were skilled warriors and builders. They left behind monumental structures such as the Lion Gate of Mycenae and the Tholos tombs, elaborate burial sites for their elite. These early Greek civilizations laid the foundations for what would later become classical Greece. As we move through prehistoric Europe, we encounter the enigmatic cultures of the Celts and the Indo-Europeans. The Celts, known for their distinctive art and warrior traditions, spread across much of Western Europe. They left a lasting cultural legacy, including intricate metalwork, monumental hill forts, and a rich oral tradition of myths and legends. The Indo-Europeans, whose migrations and linguistic influence shaped the development of many European languages, brought new ideas and technologies to the continent. Their impact can be seen in the spread of the Indo-European language family, which includes most of the modern languages spoken in Europe today. To truly understand prehistoric Europe, we must delve into the daily lives of its inhabitants. Archaeological discoveries provide a window into their communities, beliefs, and innovations. For example, the site of Skara Brae in Scotland offers a glimpse into a well-preserved Neolithic village. The stone-built houses, with their furniture and hearths, reveal a surprisingly sophisticated way of life. These early Europeans engaged in a variety of activities, from farming and hunting to crafting tools and pottery. They developed intricate burial practices, as evidenced by the lavish grave goods found in sites like the Varna necropolis in Bulgaria. These burials often included weapons, jewelry, and other items that indicate a belief in an afterlife and the importance of status and wealth in their societies. The technological and social innovations of prehistoric Europe set the stage for the development of more complex societies. The introduction of metalworking, the construction of monumental architecture, and the establishment of trade networks were all crucial developments. These advancements allowed for greater social stratification, increased economic activity, and the spread of cultural and technological ideas. The development of writing, although not widespread in prehistoric Europe, began to take root in some areas. The Linear A and Linear B scripts of the Minoans and Mycenaeans, respectively, are early examples of written language in Europe. These scripts were used primarily for administrative purposes, such as keeping records of goods and transactions, highlighting the growing complexity of these societies. The cultural and religious practices of prehistoric Europeans were diverse and deeply intertwined with their daily lives. They worshipped a variety of gods and goddesses, often associated with natural elements like the sun, moon, and fertility. Rituals and ceremonies played a significant role in their communities, as evidenced by the numerous ceremonial sites and artifacts discovered by archaeologists. The construction of megalithic structures, such as the passage tombs of Newgrange in Ireland and the stone alignments of Carnac in France, indicates a sophisticated understanding of astronomy and a deep connection to the cycles of nature. These sites were likely used for religious and ceremonial purposes, reflecting the spiritual beliefs and practices of these ancient peoples. The legacy of prehistoric Europe is still visible in many aspects of modern European culture. The innovations and developments of this period laid the foundations for future civilizations, influencing everything from language and art to social organization and technology. The cultural heritage of prehistoric Europe is preserved in the numerous archaeological sites and artifacts that continue to be studied and celebrated today. The prehistoric period in Europe was a time of profound transformation and innovation. From the hunter-gatherer societies of the Ice Age to the complex civilizations of the Bronze Age, early Europeans demonstrated remarkable adaptability and ingenuity. Their achievements in agriculture, metallurgy, architecture, and social organization laid the groundwork for the development of the rich and diverse cultures that would come to define Europe in the millennia to come. Join us as we continue our journey through the history of Europe, exploring the rise of ancient civilizations, the spread of empires, and the enduring legacy of this remarkable continent. Ancient Greece, often called the cradle of Western civilization, produced monumental achievements in philosophy, science, and the arts. Our journey through ancient Greece begins with the rise of the city-states, or polis, the most famous of which were Athens and Sparta. These city-states were unique political entities with their own governments, cultures, and ways of life. The Greek world was divided into numerous city-states, each with its own government, military, and customs. These city-states, or polis, included well-known ones like Athens, Sparta, Corinth, and Thebes. The geography of Greece, with its mountainous terrain and numerous islands, contributed to this fragmentation, making it difficult for any single entity to dominate the region. Athens and Sparta represent the two most famous and influential city-states, each embodying different aspects of Greek civilization. Their rivalry and differences highlight the diversity and richness of ancient Greek culture. Athens, renowned for its democratic principles, became a center of intellectual and artistic activity. In the 5th century BC, under the leadership of figures like Pericles, Athens experienced a golden age during which democracy flourished and the arts and sciences thrived. The Acropolis, with its iconic Parthenon, stood as a testament to the city's architectural and artistic achievements. Athenian democracy was unique for its time. Citizens participated directly in decision-making, with major decisions being made in the assembly, where every male citizen had the right to speak and vote. This system encouraged a high level of political engagement and fostered a vibrant public life. Under Pericles' leadership, Athens became a hub of culture and learning. The construction of the Parthenon, a temple dedicated to the goddess Athena, symbolized the city's glory. The Parthenon, with its Doric columns and intricate sculptures, remains one of the most enduring symbols of classical architecture. In stark contrast to Athens, Sparta was a warrior society known for its military discipline and prowess. The rigorous training of Spartan citizens, known as the agoge, produced some of the most formidable soldiers of the ancient world. Spartan society was structured around the needs of its military, with every aspect of life geared towards creating effective warriors. From a young age, Spartan boys were enrolled in the agoge, where they underwent harsh training to develop physical strength, endurance, and discipline. This training emphasized loyalty to the state and the ability to endure pain and hardship. Spartan women, too, played a significant role in maintaining the warrior ethos, managing estates, and raising strong children while their husbands were at war. Sparta's government was an oligarchy with 2 kings and a council of elders, the gerousia, sharing power. This system allowed for stable governance and quick decision-making, crucial for a state constantly at war. The Spartans' martial prowess and strict social structure made them one of the most powerful and respected military forces in ancient Greece. The Persian Wars, a series of conflicts between the Greek city-states and the Persian Empire, were pivotal in shaping Greek identity. These wars began in 490 BC with the first Persian invasion of Greece, led by King Darius I, and continued until 479 BC with the final defeat of the Persians at the Battle of Plataea. The battles of Marathon, Thermopylae, and Salamis showcased the courage and resilience of the Greeks in the face of a powerful adversary. At Marathon, a small Athenian force defeated the much larger Persian army, boosting Greek morale and demonstrating the effectiveness of hoplite warfare. The heroic stand of the Spartans at Thermopylae, led by King Leonidas, became legendary, symbolizing the valor and sacrifice of the Greek warriors. The naval battle of Salamis was another turning point. The Greek fleet, under the command of Themistocles, outmaneuvered the larger Persian navy, leading to a decisive victory that safeguarded Greek independence. These victories against the Persians united the often fractious Greek city-states and laid the groundwork for the rise of Athens as a dominant power. The Golden Age of Athens. Roughly from 480 to 404 BC was marked by significant advancements in philosophy, drama, and the visual arts. Philosophers like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle challenged conventional thinking and laid the foundations for Western philosophy. Socrates' method of questioning, known as the Socratic method, encouraged critical thinking and the pursuit of truth through dialogue. Plato, a student of Socrates, founded the Academy in Athens, one of the earliest institutions of higher learning in the Western world. His works, including the Republic, explored ideas of justice, governance, and the ideal state. Aristotle, a student of Plato, made significant contributions to a wide range of fields, including logic, ethics, politics, and natural sciences. His comprehensive system of thought influenced intellectual traditions for centuries. Theater flourished in Athens, with playwrights like Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides, creating masterpieces that explored human nature and the complexities of society. The tragedies and comedies performed in the open-air theaters of Athens reflected the city's vibrant cultural life and its engagement with profound moral and philosophical questions. Athenian art and architecture reached new heights during this period. Sculptors like Phidias created lifelike statues that celebrated the human form, emphasizing balance, proportion, and beauty. The Parthenon's friezes and sculptures, depicting scenes from Greek mythology, are prime examples of classical art's intricate detail and expressive power. Greek architecture, with its distinct orders, Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian, set the standard for public buildings and temples. The use of columns, entablatures, and pediments created a harmonious and balanced aesthetic that continues to influence architectural design to this day. The rivalry between Athens and Sparta eventually led to the Peloponnesian War, 431 to 404 BC, a protracted and destructive conflict that involved much of the Greek world. The war was fueled by competition for power and influence, as well as deep-seated cultural and political differences. The war saw periods of intense fighting, devastating plagues, and shifting alliances. Despite its initial strength, Athens was ultimately weakened by a combination of military defeats, internal strife, and the disastrous Sicilian expedition. In 404 BC, Athens surrendered to Sparta, marking the end of its golden age and the beginning of a period of instability and decline for the Greek city-states. The decline of the Greek city-states set the stage for the rise of Macedon, a kingdom to the north of Greece. Under the leadership of King Philip II, Macedon expanded its territory and influence, eventually conquering much of Greece. Philip's son, Alexander the Great, would go on to create one of the largest empires in history. Alexander, educated by Aristotle, possessed a brilliant strategic mind and an unquenchable ambition. In a series of military campaigns, he defeated the Persian Empire, conquering territories that stretched from Greece to Egypt and as far east as India. His conquests spread Greek culture and ideas across a vast area, creating a fusion of Greek and local cultures known as Hellenistic culture. The Hellenistic period, following Alexander's death in 323 BC, saw the establishment of great centers of learning and culture, such as the Library of Alexandria. This period was marked by the flourishing of science, mathematics, and astronomy. Figures like Euclid, Archimedes, and Hipparchus made significant contributions to their respective fields, advancing knowledge and understanding in ways that still resonate today. Hellenistic art and literature also thrived, characterized by increased realism and emotional expression. Sculptures from this period, such as the Laocoon group and the Venus de Milo, exhibit a heightened sense of movement and drama, reflecting the complexities of human experience. The philosophies of Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle laid the intellectual foundations for Western thought. Socrates' emphasis on questioning and dialogue, Plato's exploration of ideal forms and justice, and Aristotle's systematic approach to knowledge and ethics have had a lasting impact on philosophy, science, and education. The Stoics and Epicureans, two major philosophical schools that emerged during the Hellenistic period, further developed these ideas. Stoicism, founded by Zeno of Citium, emphasized rationality, self-control, and living in harmony with nature. Epicureanism, founded by Epicurus, taught that the pursuit of pleasure and avoidance of pain were the primary goals of life, but advocated for simple, moderate living to achieve lasting happiness. The cultural achievements of ancient Greece continue to inspire and influence the modern world. Greek literature, from Homer's epic poems to the tragedies and comedies of the classical period, has shaped the narrative traditions of Western literature. Greek mythology, with its rich tapestry of gods, heroes, and monsters, remains a source of fascination and creativity. Greek art and architecture set standards of beauty and proportion that continue to inform artistic and architectural practices. The principles of balance, harmony, and realism that characterized Greek sculpture and building design are evident in countless works of art and public buildings around the world. The political ideas developed in ancient Greece, particularly in Athens, have had a profound impact on Western political thought. The concept of democracy, with its emphasis on citizen participation and equality before the law, has influenced the development of political systems in many countries. The debates and writings of Greek philosophers on governance, justice, and the role of the state continue to inform political theory and practice. Greek contributions to science and mathematics laid the groundwork for many fields of study. The works of Euclid in geometry, Archimedes in physics and engineering, and Hippocrates in medicine established principles and methods that are still taught and used today. The Greeks' commitment to observation, experimentation, and logical reasoning set the stage for the scientific revolution and the development of modern science. The legacy of ancient Greece is vast and multifaceted, encompassing philosophy, art, literature, politics, and science. The achievements of the Greeks in these areas laid the foundations for Western civilization, influencing countless aspects of our modern world. The principles of democracy, the pursuit of knowledge and beauty, and the quest for understanding the natural world are enduring legacies of this remarkable civilization. As we conclude our journey through ancient Greece, we reflect on the profound impact that this small group of city-states had on the course of history. Their contributions to human thought and culture continue to resonate, reminding us of the enduring power of creativity, inquiry, and the human spirit. Stay with us as we continue our exploration of European history, delving into the rise and fall of the Roman Empire, the complexities of the Middle Ages, and the transformative power of the Renaissance. The story of Europe is far from over, and there are many more chapters to uncover in this epic tale of human achievement and resilience. The Roman Empire's rise began with the founding of Rome in 753 BC. From a small city-state on the banks of the Tiber River, Rome grew into one of the most powerful empires in history. The early Roman Republic, characterized by a complex system of governance and a strong sense of civic duty, laid the groundwork for Rome's expansion. According to legend, Rome was founded by Romulus and Remus, twin brothers raised by a she-wolf. This myth, while rooted in folklore, highlights the city's humble beginnings. Archaeological evidence suggests that Rome began as a small settlement of shepherds and farmers. Its strategic location on the Tiber River facilitated trade and communication, allowing it to grow and prosper. The establishment of the Roman Republic in 509 BC marked a significant turning point. The Republic was characterized by a complex system of checks and balances designed to prevent any one individual from gaining too much power. This system included two consuls, elected annually, who shared executive authority, and a Senate composed of Rome's elite, which advised and guided policy. The Republic also developed a legal framework that emphasized civic duty and public service. The concept of res publica, meaning public affair, underscored the importance of collective governance and the role of citizens in maintaining the state. Roman law, particularly the 12 Tables, codified legal principles that would influence future legal systems around the world. The Punic Wars. One of the key events in the rise of Rome was the series of conflicts with Carthage known as the Punic Wars. These wars, fought between 264 and 146 BC, were pivotal in establishing Rome's dominance in the Mediterranean. First Punic War, 264 to 241 BC. The first conflict arose over control of Sicily. Rome, initially a land-based power, built a powerful navy to challenge Carthage's maritime supremacy. The war ended with Rome's victory and the annexation of Sicily as its first province. Second Punic War, 218 to 201 BC. The second and most famous Punic War saw the brilliant Carthaginian general Hannibal cross the Alps with his war elephants to invade Italy. Despite winning several major battles, including the Battle of Cannae, Hannibal was eventually defeated by the Roman general Scipio Africanus at the Battle of Zama. This victory solidified Rome's position as the preeminent power in the Western Mediterranean. Third Punic War, 149 to 146 BC. The Third Punic War was a brief but brutal conflict that resulted in the complete destruction of Carthage. Rome's victory in this war marked the end of Carthaginian power and the beginning of Rome's unchallenged dominance in the region. The transition from republic to empire. The transformation from republic to empire was marked by internal strife and civil war. The assassination of Julius Caesar in 44 BC was a turning point in Roman history. Caesar, who had declared himself dictator for life, was seen as a threat to the republic's traditions. His death plunged Rome into chaos, leading to a power struggle among his supporters and opponents. The rise of Augustus. Out of the turmoil emerged Augustus, formerly known as Octavian, Caesar's adopted son and heir. After defeating his rivals, including Mark Antony and Cleopatra, Augustus established himself as the first Roman emperor in 27 BC. His reign ushered in the Pax Romana, a period of relative peace and stability that lasted for over 2 centuries. Augustus was a shrewd and effective ruler. He maintained the facade of republican governance while holding ultimate power. He reformed the military, established a professional standing army, and created a network of roads that facilitated trade and communication across the empire. Augustus also embarked on an ambitious building program, commissioning structures such as the Areopagus and the Forum of Augustus. The Pax Romana. The Pax Romana, or Roman peace, was a remarkable period of stability and prosperity. During this time, the empire expanded to its greatest extent, stretching from Britain in the north to Egypt in the south, and from Spain in the west to the Middle East in the east. The Roman Empire became a melting pot of cultures, languages, and religions. Roman infrastructure, particularly its extensive road network, facilitated the movement of goods, people, and ideas. The saying, "all roads lead to Rome," reflected the centrality of the city in the vast network of the empire. Aqueducts supplied fresh water to cities, and public baths, theaters, and arenas provided venues for social and cultural activities. Roman law and governance. One of the most enduring legacies of the Roman Empire is its legal system. Roman law was based on principles such as the presumption of innocence, the right to a fair trial, and the concept of natural law, the idea that certain rights are inherent and universal. These principles have profoundly influenced modern legal systems around the world. The Roman government was highly organized and efficient. The empire was divided into provinces, each governed by an appointed official who reported directly to the emperor. This administrative structure allowed for effective control and governance of the vast territories of the empire. Roman engineering and architecture. Roman engineering and architecture were unparalleled in the ancient world. The Romans were master builders, known for their use of concrete, arches, and vaults. These innovations allowed them to construct large and durable structures, many of which still stand today. The Colosseum. One of Rome's most iconic structures, the Colosseum could seat up to 50,000 spectators. It was used for gladiatorial games, public spectacles, and other forms of entertainment. The Pantheon. Originally built as a temple to all the gods, the Pantheon is renowned for its massive dome and oculus. Its design and construction are considered engineering marvels. Aqueducts. Roman aqueducts, such as the Aqua Appia and the Pont du Gard, transported fresh water over long distances. These structures exemplify Roman engineering prowess and their ability to shape the environment to meet their needs. Military conquests and expansion. The Roman Empire's expansion was driven by its powerful and disciplined military. Roman legions, composed of well-trained and heavily armed soldiers, were the backbone of the empire's military might. The legions were supported by auxiliary troops, recruited from non-citizen populations who provided additional manpower and specialized skills. Conquest of Gaul. Under the leadership of Julius Caesar, Rome conquered the region of Gaul, modern-day France, in the 1st century BC. This campaign not only expanded Rome's territory, but also enhanced Caesar's reputation and political power. Invasion of Britain. The Roman conquest of Britain began in AD 43 under Emperor Claudius. The establishment of Roman rule in Britain brought the region into the fold of Roman civilization, leaving a lasting legacy in the form of roads, forts, and cities. Eastern campaigns. Rome's expansion into the Eastern Mediterranean brought it into conflict with powerful kingdoms such as Parthia. The annexation of Egypt in 30 BC, following the defeat of Mark Antony and Cleopatra, added a wealthy and strategically important province to the empire. The cultural contributions. The cultural contributions of the Roman Empire are vast and varied. Rome's literature, philosophy, and art were deeply influenced by Greek culture, but the Romans made their own unique contributions. Literature. Roman literature produced works of enduring value. Writers such as Virgil, Ovid, and Horace created epic poems, love elegies, and satires that explored themes of heroism, love, and politics. Virgil's Aeneid, an epic poem that tells the story of Rome's legendary founder, Aeneas, became a cornerstone of Roman literary culture. Philosophy. Roman philosophy was heavily influenced by Greek thought, particularly the works of Stoic and Epicurean philosophers. Thinkers such as Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, and Cicero contributed to the development of ethical and political philosophy, emphasizing the importance of reason, virtue, and the common good. Art. Roman art encompassed a wide range of forms, including sculpture, painting, and mosaic. Portraiture was a particularly important genre, with realistic and idealized depictions of emperors, politicians, and ordinary citizens. Roman art also included grand public monuments, such as triumphal arches and columns, which celebrated military victories and imperial achievements. The decline of the Roman Empire. The decline of the Roman Empire began in the late 3rd century AD as internal strife, economic troubles, and external pressures weakened its stability. Several factors contributed to the gradual decline and eventual fall of the Western Roman Empire. Economic troubles. The empire faced severe economic challenges, including inflation, heavy taxation, and a reliance on slave labor. These issues undermined economic stability and contributed to social unrest. Military challenges. The Roman military once invincible, faced increasing difficulties in defending the empire's vast borders. Barbarian invasions, including those by the Visigoths, Vandals, and Huns, put immense pressure on the empire's defenses. Political instability. The Roman Empire experienced frequent changes in leadership, with numerous emperors being assassinated or deposed. This political instability weakened central authority and made it difficult to respond effectively to external threats. Division of the empire. In 285, Emperor Diocletian divided the Roman Empire into eastern and western halves in an attempt to improve administrative efficiency. This division, while initially beneficial, eventually led to divergent political and economic developments, contributing to the decline of the Western Empire. The fall of the Western Roman Empire. The fall of Rome in 476 AD, following invasions by various barbarian tribes, signaled the collapse of the Western Empire and the beginning of the Middle Ages. The last Roman emperor, Romulus Augustulus, was deposed by the Germanic chieftain Odoacer, marking the end of centuries of Roman rule in the West. The Eastern Roman Empire, Byzantium. While the Western Roman Empire fell, the Eastern Roman Empire, known as the Byzantine Empire, continued to thrive for nearly 1,000 years. The Byzantine Empire preserved many aspects of Roman culture, law, and governance, and played a crucial role in the preservation and transmission of classical knowledge. The capital of the Byzantine Empire was Constantinople, formerly known as Byzantium, which became a center of trade, culture, and political power. The Byzantine Empire reached its peak under Emperor Justinian II, who sought to restore the glory of the Roman Empire through military conquests and ambitious building projects, including the construction of the Hagia Sophia. The legacy of the Roman Empire. The legacy of the Roman Empire is vast and enduring. Roman law, engineering, and architecture have left an indelible mark on Western civilization. The principles of Roman governance, particularly the concepts of republicanism and civic duty, continue to influence modern political thought and institutions. Roman legal principles, such as the presumption of innocence and the right to a fair trial, form the basis of many modern legal systems. Roman engineering feats, including the construction of roads, aqueducts, and monumental structures, demonstrated their advanced understanding of technology and their ability to shape the environment. The cultural contributions of the Romans, including literature, philosophy, and art, have also had a lasting impact. Roman literature and philosophy continue to be studied and admired for their insights into human nature and society. Roman art and architecture, with their emphasis on realism and grandeur, have inspired countless artists and architects throughout history. The enduring influence of the Roman Empire. As we conclude our journey through the history of the Roman Empire, we reflect on the profound impact that this extraordinary civilization had on the world. From its legendary founding to its ultimate decline, the Roman Empire shaped the course of history and laid the foundations for Western civilization. The achievements of the Romans in law, governance, engineering, and culture continue to resonate in our modern world. The principles of democracy, the rule of law, and the pursuit of knowledge and beauty are enduring legacies of this remarkable civilization. Join us as we continue our exploration of European history, delving into the complexities of the Middle Ages, the transformative power of the Renaissance, and the revolutionary changes of the modern era. The story of Europe is far from over, and there are many more chapters to uncover in this epic tale of human achievement and resilience. The Middle Ages, Feudalism, and the Church. After the fall of Rome, Europe entered the Middle Ages, a period characterized by the rise of feudalism and the power of the Catholic Church. The early Middle Ages, often referred to as the Dark Ages, saw the fragmentation of the Roman Empire and the rise of various barbarian kingdoms. Feudalism became the dominant social and economic system in medieval Europe. Land was the primary source of wealth and power, and society was structured around relationships of loyalty and service. Lords granted land to vassals in exchange for military service, and peasants worked the land in return for protection and a share of the produce. The Catholic Church emerged as a powerful institution during this time, playing a central role in the lives of medieval Europeans. Monasteries became centers of learning and preservation of classical knowledge, while the papacy exerted significant influence over political and spiritual matters. The Church's power was demonstrated in events such as the crowning of Charlemagne as Holy Roman Emperor in 800 AD and the excommunication of kings and emperors who challenged its authority. The Viking invasions, beginning in the late 8th century, brought chaos and destruction to many parts of Europe. The Norsemen, renowned for their seafaring skills and ferocity in battle, raided coastal settlements and established colonies as far afield as Greenland and North America. The Viking impact was both destructive and transformative, leading to the eventual integration of Viking culture into the broader European context. The Carolingian Renaissance, spearheaded by Charlemagne and his successors, marked a revival of learning and culture in the early Middle Ages. The establishment of schools, the promotion of literacy, and the preservation of classical texts laid the groundwork for future intellectual developments. The Norman conquest of England in 1066, led by William the Conqueror, was a significant event that reshaped the political and cultural landscape of the British Isles. The Normans introduced new administrative practices, legal systems, and architectural styles, leaving a lasting legacy on English society. The Crusades, a series of religious wars initiated by the papacy to reclaim the Holy Land from Muslim control, had profound social, economic, and political impacts on Europe. The Crusades facilitated cultural exchanges, increased trade, and contributed to the weakening of the feudal system. The Black Death, a devastating pandemic that swept through Europe in the 14th century, decimated the population and caused profound social and economic upheaval. The massive loss of life led to labor shortages, shifts in economic power, and changes in social structures. In this segment, we'll explore the key events, figures, and developments of the Middle Ages. We'll examine the rise of feudalism, the power of the Catholic Church, the impact of the Viking invasions, and the significant events that shaped medieval Europe. The Renaissance marked a period of renewed interest in classical knowledge and the arts. Starting in Italy, it spread across Europe, fostering remarkable achievements in art, literature, and science. This era was characterized by a revival of learning, a flourishing of creativity, and a quest for knowledge that transformed European society. The Renaissance began in the 14th century and reached its peak in the 15th and 16th centuries. It was a time of rediscovery of the classical texts of ancient Greece and Rome, which had been preserved and studied by scholars in the Byzantine and Islamic worlds. The humanist movement, which emphasized the value of human potential and achievements, played a central role in the Renaissance. Artists like Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Raphael created masterpieces that continue to inspire and awe audiences today. Leonardo's Mona Lisa and The Last Supper, Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel ceiling, and David and Raphael's School of Athens exemplify the artistic achievements of this period. These works reflected a deep understanding of anatomy, perspective, and the natural world, as well as a profound sense of beauty and harmony. The invention of the printing press by Johannes Gutenberg in the mid-15th century revolutionized communication and the dissemination of knowledge. For the first time, books could be produced quickly and in large quantities, making literature and scientific texts more accessible to a wider audience. This technological advancement played a crucial role in the spread of Renaissance ideas and the democratization of knowledge. The Renaissance also saw significant advancements in science and exploration. Figures like Galileo Galilei, Nicolaus Copernicus, and Andreas Vesalius challenged traditional views of the universe and the human body, laying the foundations for modern science. The voyages of explorers like Christopher Columbus, Vasco da Gama, and Ferdinand Magellan expanded European horizons and initiated an era of global exploration and colonization. In this segment, we'll explore the key events, figures, and achievements of the Renaissance. We'll delve into the works of the great artists, the contributions of humanist scholars, and the scientific discoveries that transformed our understanding of the world. We'll also examine the impact of the printing press and the voyages of exploration that connected Europe to the rest of the world. Join us as we journey through the Renaissance, a time of rebirth and rediscovery that set the stage for the modern age. The late 15th and 16th centuries marked a pivotal period in European history as nations across the continent embarked on a remarkable era of exploration, discovery, and colonial expansion. This transformative period, known as the Age of Exploration, would have profound and lasting consequences for the entire world, reshaping the geopolitical, economic, and cultural landscape in ways that continue to reverberate to this day. The pioneers of exploration, Portugal and Spain. The Age of Exploration was pioneered by two of the most dominant maritime powers of the era, Portugal and Spain. Driven by a combination of commercial interests, religious zeal, and a thirst for glory and conquest, these Iberian nations set out to establish new trade routes and claim territories beyond the boundaries of Europe. At the forefront of Portugal's expansionist efforts was the figure of Prince Henry the Navigator, who spearheaded a series of voyages that systematically explored the western coast of Africa. Under his leadership, Portuguese sailors ventured farther south, eventually rounding the Cape of Good Hope and establishing trade routes to India and the lucrative Spice Islands. The Portuguese success in establishing these extensive trade networks, which brought a steady stream of valuable resources like spices, silk, and precious metals back to Europe, sparked a fierce rivalry with their Iberian neighbors, the Spanish. This competition for dominance in the global arena would ultimately lead to the pivotal voyage of Christopher Columbus in 1492. Sponsored by the Spanish monarchs Ferdinand and Isabella, Columbus's expedition to the west in search of a new route to Asia resulted in the accidental discovery of the Americas. This momentous event, which marked the first sustained contact between the European and indigenous American civilizations, ushered in a new era of exploration and colonization that would transform the world. The Spanish conquest of the Americas. The discovery of the Americas by Columbus paved the way for the subsequent Spanish conquest and colonization of vast swaths of the New World. Driven by a potent combination of religious zeal, thirst for wealth, and a belief in the superiority of European culture, the Spanish conquistadors launched a series of expeditions that overwhelmed and subjugated the indigenous empires of the region. The conquest of the Aztec Empire in Mexico, led by Hern and Cortés, and the subjugation of the Inca Empire in Peru, spearheaded by Francisco Pizarro, were two of the most dramatic and consequential events of this period. These military campaigns, characterized by the deployment of superior weaponry, strategic acumen, and the exploitation of existing rivalries among the indigenous populations, allowed the Spanish to establish a vast colonial empire that stretched from the Caribbean to the Andes. The establishment of Spanish colonial rule in the Americas had profound and often devastating consequences for the indigenous peoples. Millions were killed by disease, forced labor, and outright genocide, while the survivors were subjected to a brutal system of exploitation and cultural assimilation. The encomienda system, which granted Spanish colonists the right to demand labor and tribute from the indigenous population, exemplified the inhumane conditions that prevailed in the colonies. The Columbian Exchange and its global impact. Alongside the military conquest and colonial expansion, the Age of Exploration also witnessed the unprecedented exchange of goods, ideas, and technologies between the Eastern and Western hemispheres. This phenomenon, known as the Columbian Exchange, had a profound and lasting impact on both Europe and the Americas. The introduction of new crops, such as potatoes, maize, and tomatoes, revolutionized agricultural practices and dietary patterns in Europe, while the importation of crops like sugarcane and tobacco transformed the economies of the Caribbean and the American mainland. Conversely, the Europeans introduced horses, cattle, and other livestock to the Americas, forever altering the ways of life of the indigenous populations. The exchange also had devastating consequences, as the introduction of European diseases like smallpox, measles, and influenza decimated the indigenous populations who had no prior exposure or immunity to these pathogens. This biological asymmetry, coupled with the violence of the conquest, resulted in the loss of an estimated 80 to 90% of the native population in the Americas. The Columbian Exchange, however, was not limited to the realm of agriculture and disease. The transfer of technologies, such as the printing press and navigational instruments, as well as the sharing of cultural practices and artistic traditions, contributed to a complex process of cultural hybridization that would shape the societies of both the Old and New Worlds. The rise of the transatlantic slave trade, concurrent with the exploration and colonization of the Americas, the Age of Exploration also witnessed the emergence of one of the most egregious and inhumane aspects of European expansion, the transatlantic slave trade. Driven by the demand for labor-intensive cash crops like sugar, tobacco, and cotton, European colonial powers, led by Portugal, Spain, Britain, France, and the Netherlands, orchestrated the forced displacement and enslavement of millions of Africans. This brutal practice, which saw the transportation of an estimated 12 to 15 million Africans to the Americas over the course of 3 centuries, had a profound and lasting impact on the demographic, social, and economic structures of both Africa and the New World. The transatlantic slave trade not only enriched the European colonial powers, but also fundamentally reshaped the societies of the Americas. The influx of enslaved Africans who were subjected to dehumanizing conditions and forced labor led to the emergence of new cultural and linguistic traditions, as well as the development of syncretic religious practices that blended African and European elements. The legacy of the transatlantic slave trade continues to reverberate in the present day as the descendants of the enslaved Africans grapple with the ongoing effects of systemic racism, economic inequalities, and the psychological trauma of this trick chapter in history. The establishment of colonial empires. The exploration and conquest of the Americas by the European powers laid the foundation for the establishment of extensive colonial empires that would come to dominate much of the globe. These colonial enterprises, driven by a combination of economic, political, and cultural motivations, transformed the international order and had far-reaching consequences for both the colonizers and the colonized. The Portuguese and Spanish were the first to establish colonial strongholds in the Americas, with the Portuguese focusing on Brazil and the Spanish claiming vast swaths of Central and South America, as well as parts of the Caribbean. Over time, other European nations, such as the Dutch, the French, and the British, also joined the race for colonial dominance, carving out their own spheres of influence across Africa, Asia, and the Pacific. The colonial empires were not merely territorial acquisitions. They were complex socio-economic and political systems that sought to extract resources, accumulate wealth, and project European cultural and religious influence. The establishment of trading companies, the construction of fortified settlements, and the imposition of colonial administration and legal systems all served to consolidate the power and control of the European colonizers over their overseas possessions. The impacts of colonial rule were multifaceted and often devastating for the indigenous populations. The displacement, dispossession, and subjugation of local communities, coupled with the exploitation of natural resources and the disruption of traditional economic and social structures, led to widespread suffering and the erosion of cultural diversity. The colonial enterprises also perpetuated the horrors of the transatlantic slave trade, which continued to shape the demographic and economic landscapes of the colonized regions. The legacy of the Age of Exploration and Colonial Empires. The Age of Exploration and the subsequent establishment of colonial empires by the European powers have left an indelible mark on the course of global history. While this era of discovery and expansion brought about numerous technological, economic, and cultural advancements, it also gave rise to profound inequalities, exploitation, and the erosion of indigenous societies. One of the most enduring legacies of this period is the ongoing impact of the Columbian Exchange on the environmental, demographic, and economic landscapes of both the Old and New Worlds. The introduction of new crops, livestock, and technologies transformed agricultural practices and dietary patterns, while the devastating effects of European diseases on indigenous populations continue to shape the demographic realities of many regions. The colonial enterprises, driven by the quest for resources, wealth, and power, also left a complex and often troubled legacy. The displacement and subjugation of local communities, the exploitation of natural resources, and the perpetuation of the transatlantic slave trade have all had long-lasting consequences for the societies that were caught in the web of colonial domination. The modern international order, with its web of geopolitical rivalries, economic interdependencies, and cultural exchanges, can be traced back to the foundations laid during the Age of Exploration and the colonial era. The rise of nation-states, the emergence of global trade networks, and the uneven distribution of power and resources all find their roots in this transformative period of European expansion. Moreover, the legacy of the Age of Exploration and colonial empires continues to shape contemporary debates and challenges. The ongoing struggles for self-determination, the calls for reparations, and the repatriation of cultural artifacts and the efforts to address the environmental and social impacts of historical colonialism all reflect the enduring relevance of this pivotal chapter in human history. As we grapple with the complex and often painful legacies of the age of exploration and colonial rule, it is crucial to acknowledge the diverse perspectives and experiences of both the colonizers and the colonized. The stories of exploration, conquest, and exploitation must be balanced with the voices of the indigenous peoples, the enslaved, and the marginalized, whose experiences and resilience have often been obscured or silenced. By confronting the full history of this era, with all its triumphs and tragedies, we can gain a deeper understanding of the forces that have shaped the modern world. This knowledge can then inform our efforts to build a more just, equitable, and sustainable global community, one that acknowledges the past while charting a course towards a more inclusive and prosperous future. The age of exploration and the colonial empires that followed represent a pivotal chapter in the human story, one that continues to reverberate in the present day. As we reflect on this complex and transformative period, we are reminded of the enduring power of human curiosity, the potential for both progress and exploitation, and the imperative to grapple with the legacies of the past in order to shape a more just and equitable world. The Enlightenment and Revolutions. The late 17th and 18th centuries witnessed the emergence of a profound intellectual and philosophical movement that would have a transformative impact on the political, social, and cultural landscape of Europe. This era, known as the Enlightenment, was characterized by a steadfast belief in the power of human reason, the pursuit of knowledge, and the challenging of traditional authority. The rise of the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment arose in the context of growing discontent with the prevailing social, political, and religious order in Europe. The absolute monarchies that dominated the continent, as well as the pervasive influence of the Catholic Church, were increasingly seen by many thinkers and intellectuals as obstacles to progress and individual liberty. At the forefront of this intellectual revolution were the philosophers, or philosophies, who sought to apply the principles of reason, empiricism, and scientific inquiry to all aspects of human existence. These Enlightenment thinkers, drawing inspiration from the scientific advancements of the 17th century, challenged the dogmas and traditions that had long held sway over European societies. One of the most prominent and influential Enlightenment philosophers was Voltaire, the French writer, historian, and social critic. Voltaire's sharp wit, biting satire, and unwavering commitment to freedom of speech and expression made him a formidable critic of religious intolerance and political oppression. His works, such as Candide, and his numerous essays, championed the ideals of individual liberty, the separation of church and state, and the importance of rational inquiry. Another key figure of the Enlightenment was Jean-Jacques Rousseau, the Swiss-born philosopher whose ideas on the social contract and the general will would have a profound impact on political thought. Rousseau argued that society should be based on a collective agreement in which individuals surrender their individual rights to the general will, which would then govern the affairs of the state. This concept, outlined in his seminal work, The Social Contract, would go on to inspire revolutionary ideas about democracy and the role of the state. The German philosopher Immanuel Kant also made significant contributions to the Enlightenment. Kant's critical philosophy, which emphasized the importance of individual autonomy and moral reasoning, challenged traditional metaphysical assumptions and laid the groundwork for modern philosophical inquiry. His works, such as Critique of Pure Reason and Groundwork of the Metaphysics of Morals, explored the nature of knowledge, the basis of ethics, and the role of the individual in society. The Enlightenment thinkers, through their writings, lectures, and social networks, disseminated their ideas across Europe, inspiring a growing sense of skepticism towards traditional authority and a newfound belief in the transformative power of human reason. This intellectual ferment would ultimately pave the way for two of the most significant political events of the era: the American Revolution and the French Revolution. The American Revolution, forging a new nation. The American Revolution, which unfolded between 1775 and 1783, was a seminal event that was deeply informed by the principles and ideals of the Enlightenment. The colonists in British North America, increasingly dissatisfied with the political and economic constraints imposed by the Crown, were inspired by the Enlightenment's emphasis on individual rights, self-governance, and the social contract. The primary catalyst for the American Revolution was the growing sense of political and economic grievances among the colonists, who felt that they were being unfairly taxed and governed by a distant and unresponsive British government. The slogan "No taxation without representation" captured the colonists' demand for a greater voice in the political process and a more equitable distribution of power. The writings of Enlightenment thinkers, such as John Locke's ideas on natural rights and the social contract, provided a philosophical foundation for the colonists' revolutionary aspirations. The Declaration of Independence, penned by Thomas Jefferson, embodied these Enlightenment ideals, asserting that all men are created equal and that they have an unalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The American Revolution was a complex and multifaceted conflict involving a protracted military struggle, diplomatic maneuvering, and the forging of a new national identity. The Continental Army, led by the iconic figure of George Washington, gradually wore down the superior British forces, eventually securing victory through a combination of strategic brilliance, guerrilla tactics, and the support of key European allies, such as France. The establishment of the United States of America, with its democratic constitution and system of checks and balances, represented a profound transformation in the political landscape of the Western world. The American Revolution not only secured the independence of the former British colonies, but also served as a powerful inspiration for future revolutionary movements across Europe and beyond. The French Revolution, upending the old order. The French Revolution, which unfolded between 1789 and 1799, was a cataclysmic event that would have an even more profound and far-reaching impact on European society and governance. Inspired by the Enlightenment's ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity, the French Revolution sought to overthrow the absolute monarchy and the feudal system that had long dominated the country. The immediate trigger for the French Revolution was the dire economic and social conditions that prevailed in France, exacerbated by a series of poor harvests, rising food prices, and a growing sense of resentment towards the lavish lifestyle of the monarchy and the nobility. The storming of the Bastille, a symbolic act of defiance against royal authority, marked the beginning of the revolutionary upheaval. In the years that followed, the French Revolution underwent a series of dramatic transformations, from the abolition of feudal privileges and the declaration of the rights of man and of the citizen to the establishment of a republican form of the execution of King Louis XVI. The revolution also gave rise to radical political movements such as the Jacobins, whose call for a more egalitarian and centralized state led to the Reign of Terror, a period of intense political repression and violence. The ideological and political legacy of the French Revolution was profound. The principles of liberty, equality, and the sovereignty of the people became the rallying cries for revolutionary movements across Europe, inspiring subsequent uprisings in places like Greece, Belgium, and Poland. The French Revolution also had a significant impact on the social and cultural fabric of the country, leading to the emancipation of the peasantry, the strengthening of the bourgeoisie, and the transformation of gender roles and family structures. The French Revolution's influence was not limited to the domestic sphere. It also had significant geopolitical ramifications. The Revolutionary Wars, in which France sought to export its ideals across the continent, led to the establishment of French hegemony over much of Europe, ultimately provoking a backlash from the traditional monarchies and the formation of various anti-French coalitions. The rise of radical politics and the Napoleonic era. The aftermath of the French Revolution was marked by a period of political instability and the rise of radical political movements. The overthrow of the monarchy and the establishment of a republic gave way to a power struggle between various factions, each with its own vision for the future of France. One of the most prominent and influential of these radical movements was the Jacobins, led by figures such as Maximilien Robespierre and Georges Danton. The Jacobins, driven by a belief in the need for a strong, centralized state and the elimination of counter-revolutionary elements, instituted a reign of terror that saw the execution of thousands of perceived enemies of the revolution, including the former king and queen. The Jacobin regime, however, was ultimately overthrown in a coup led by a young military officer named Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon, a brilliant strategist and a skilled political operator, capitalized on the public's desire for stability and order, eventually crowning himself Emperor of France in 1804. The Napoleonic era, which lasted from 1804 to 1815, was marked by a series of military campaigns that reshaped the political landscape of Europe. Napoleon's forces conquered much of the continent, spreading the revolutionary ideals of the French Revolution while also establishing French hegemony over large swaths of territory. The Napoleonic Wars, a series of conflicts involving various European coalitions against France, had a profound impact on the continent. Napoleon's victories brought about significant territorial changes in the spread of revolutionary ideals, but his ambitious expansion also led to widespread destruction and loss of life. The eventual defeat of Napoleon at the Battle of Waterloo in 1815, followed by the Congress of Vienna, a diplomatic conference aimed at restoring order and balance to Europe, marked the end of the Revolutionary era and the beginning of a new political landscape in the 19th century. The legacy of the Enlightenment and the revolutions. The Enlightenment and the two major revolutions, it inspired the American Revolution and the French Revolution, have left an indelible mark on European history and the development of modern political thought and governance. The Enlightenment's emphasis on reason, individual rights, and the social contract laid the groundwork for the concept of democratic self-governance. The American Revolution, in particular, embodied these principles, establishing a new nation-state founded on the ideals of liberty, equality, and the pursuit of happiness. The creation of the United States, with its system of checks and balances and its Bill of Rights, served as a powerful inspiration for future democratic movements around the world. The French Revolution, on the other hand, represented a more radical and violent manifestation of the Enlightenment's ideals. The overthrow of the monarchy, the abolition of feudal privileges, and the declaration of the rights of man and of the citizen sparked a wave of social and political upheaval that would reverberate across Europe. The Revolutionary Wars and the rise of radical political movements, such as the Jacobins, demonstrated the transformative power and the potential dangers of the Enlightenment's ideas when put into practice. The legacy of the Enlightenment and these revolutions can be seen in the ongoing debates over the role of the state, the limits of individual liberty, and the tension between the principles of equality and hierarchy. The struggles for self-determination, the quest for social and economic justice, and the desire for political representation all find their roots in the intellectual and political ferment of this era. Moreover, the Enlightenment and the revolutions it inspired have had a profound impact on the cultural and artistic spheres. The emphasis on individual expression, the celebration of reason and scientific inquiry, and the exploration of the human condition have all left an indelible mark on the literary, artistic, and intellectual traditions of Europe. As we gaze upon the complex and often turbulent legacy of the Enlightenment and the revolutions it sparked, we are confronted with the enduring relevance of these transformative events. The ideals of liberty, equality, and the rights of the individual continue to shape the political and social discourse, challenging us to reconcile the sometimes competing demands of individual freedom and collective responsibility. The lessons of the Enlightenment and the revolutions it inspired remind us of the power of ideas to reshape the world, the fragility of established order, and the importance of balancing the pursuit of progress with the preservation of stability. As Europe and the global community navigate the challenges of the 21st century, the echoes of this pivotal period in history continue to reverberate, offering both inspiration and cautionary tales for those who seek to forge a better future. The Napoleonic Era and the Congress of Vienna. The early 19th century was a tumultuous and transformative period in European history, marked by the dramatic rise and fall of Napoleon Bonaparte and the subsequent efforts to restore order and stability to the continent. This era, defined by the Napoleonic Wars and the Congress of Vienna, would have far-reaching consequences for the political, social, and economic landscape of Europe in the decades to come. The rise of Napoleon Bonaparte. The origins of Napoleon's rise to power can be traced back to the upheaval of the French Revolution. As the revolutionary fervor swept across France, Napoleon, a brilliant military strategist and skilled political operator, began to emerge as a dominant figure on the national stage. Born on the island of Corsica in 1769, Napoleon's early career was marked by a series of military successes that garnered him the respect and admiration of the French people. His victory against the Royalist insurrection in Paris in 1795 paved the way for his appointment as commander of the French army in Italy, where he led a series of daring campaigns that humbled the forces of the First Coalition, a collection of European powers opposed to the French Revolution. Napoleon's meteoric rise continued in the following years, as he staged a coup d'état in 1799 that installed him as the first consul of the French Republic. Consolidating his power through a combination of military prowess and political acumen, Napoleon was crowned Emperor of France in 1804, a title that solidified his position as the dominant figure in European affairs. The Napoleonic Wars and the expansion of French power. Napoleon's reign as emperor was marked by a series of military campaigns that reshaped the political landscape of Europe, driven by a desire to expand French influence and assert his dominance over the continent. Napoleon embarked on a series of wars that became known as the Napoleonic Wars. The early phase of the Napoleonic Wars saw Napoleon's forces achieve a series of stunning victories as they overwhelmed the armies of the Second and Third Coalitions, leading to the establishment of French hegemony over much of Europe. The French Empire soon encompassed territories stretching from the Iberian Peninsula to the borders of the Russian Empire, with Napoleon's siblings and allies installed as rulers of client states and satellite kingdoms. However, Napoleon's ambitions were not confined to the military sphere. He also sought to reshape the political and social fabric of the territories under French control, introducing a series of reforms and codes that reflected the revolutionary ideals of the French Revolution. The Napoleonic Code, for instance, established principles of equality, religious tolerance, and the protection of private property, while also centralizing state power and strengthening the role of the monarchy. The turning point and the defeat of Napoleon. Despite the initial success of his military campaigns, Napoleon's fortunes began to turn in the early 1810s. His disastrous invasion of Russia in 1812, which resulted in the decimation of the French Grande Army, marked a crucial turning point in the Napoleonic Wars. The failure of the Russian campaign, combined with the growing opposition of a coalition of European powers, including Britain, Austria, Prussia, and Russia, led to the eventual downfall of Napoleon. His forces were steadily pushed back, and in 1814, the Allied armies invaded France, forcing Napoleon to abdicate and leading to the restoration of the Bourbon monarchy under Louis XVIII. The final chapter in Napoleon's reign came in 1815, when he briefly returned to power in the wake of the Bourbon Restoration, only to be decisively defeated by the Duke of Wellington and Prussian forces at the Battle of Waterloo. This resounding defeat marked the end of Napoleon's ambitions and the restoration of the old order in Europe, the Congress of Vienna, and the reshaping of Europe. With Napoleon's defeat, the European powers turned their attention to the task of rebuilding and reshaping the continent in the aftermath of the Napoleonic Wars. This process was spearheaded by the Congress of Vienna, a diplomatic conference held from 1814 to 1815, which brought together representatives from the major powers, including Britain, Austria, Prussia, and Russia. The primary goal of the Congress of Vienna was to establish a new balance of power in Europe, one that would prevent the rise of another dominant state like Napoleonic France. To this end, the Congress engaged in a complex process of territorial rearrangement, boundary redrawing, and the restoration of monarchical rule. The most prominent figure at the Congress of Vienna was Prince Clemens von Metternich of Austria, who emerged as the architect of the post-Napoleonic order. Metternich's guiding principles were the restoration of legitimate monarchies, the preservation of the balance of power, and the suppression of revolutionary and nationalist movements that threatened the stability of the European system. The decisions made at the Congress of Vienna had far-reaching consequences for the political landscape of Europe. The map of the continent was redrawn, with the dismantling of the Holy Roman Empire and the creation of new states, such as the Kingdom of the Netherlands and the German Confederation. The Congress also sought to bolster the power of the Austrian Empire, which had emerged as a key counterweight to French ambitions. Crucially, the Congress of Vienna established the principle of legitimacy, which held that the restoration of monarchical rule was essential to the preservation of order and stability. This principle would go on to shape European politics for much of the 19th century, as conservative forces sought to maintain the status quo and resist the demands of nationalist and liberal movements. The legacy of the Napoleonic era and the Congress of Vienna. The Napoleonic era and the Congress of Vienna had a profound and lasting impact on the political, social, and economic landscape of Europe. The wars that raged across the continent during this period resulted in widespread destruction and loss of life, while also accelerating the decline of the old feudal order and the rise of new political and social forces. One of the key legacies of this era was the emergence of nationalism as a powerful political force. Napoleon's military campaigns and the subsequent redrawing of European borders fueled the growth of nationalist sentiment as ethnic and linguistic groups sought to assert their identity and demands for self-determination. This phenomenon would ultimately contribute to the unification of Germany and Italy in the mid-19th century, as well as the decline of the multi-ethnic empires, such as the Austro-Hungarian and Ottoman empires. The Congress of Vienna, for its part, sought to restore a sense of stability and order to the continent, but its efforts were ultimately limited in their effectiveness. The principles of legitimacy and intervention established at the Congress were challenged by the growing demands for liberal reform and democratic representation, leading to a series of revolutions and upheavals throughout the 19th century. The legacy of the Napoleonic era and the Congress of Vienna can also be seen in the realm of law and governance. The Napoleonic Code, with its emphasis on equality, private property, and the centralization of state power, would go on to influence legal systems across Europe and beyond. The diplomatic practices and principles developed at the Congress of Vienna, such as the concept of the balance of power, would also shape the conduct of international relations for generations to come. As we reflect on this pivotal period in European history, it is clear that the legacies of the Napoleonic era and the Congress of Vienna continue to resonate in the present day. The tensions between nationalist and liberal forces, the challenges of maintaining stability and order in the face of social and political change, and the ongoing debates over the role of international cooperation and the balance of power, all of these themes have their roots in the tumultuous events of the early 19th century. In navigating the complexities of the modern world, the lessons of this era remain relevant and instructive. The successes and failures of Napoleon, the triumphs and limitations of the Congress of Vienna, these experiences offer insights into the enduring human struggles for power, influence, and the shaping of political and social order. As we confront the challenges of the 21st century, the echoes of this pivotal period in European history continue to reverberate, reminding us of both the fragility and the resilience of the human endeavor. The Industrial Revolution and nationalism. The late 18th and 19th centuries witnessed a profound transformation in the economic, social, and political landscape of Europe. This transformative period, known as the Industrial Revolution, marked a fundamental shift in the way goods were produced and societies were organized. Simultaneously, the rise of nationalism emerged as a powerful force that reshaped the political map of the continent. The origins of the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution had its origins in Britain, where a confluence of factors created the ideal conditions for technological and economic innovations to flourish. These factors included the availability of abundant natural resources, such as coal and iron, a skilled and growing workforce, a supportive economic and political system, and the pioneering spirit of British entrepreneurs and inventors. The early stages of the Industrial Revolution were characterized by advancements in the textile industry. The invention of the spinning jenny, the water frame, and the power loom revolutionized the production of cotton, wool, and other fabrics, leading to a surge in productivity and a drastic reduction in manufacturing costs. These technological breakthroughs were closely followed by the development of the steam engine, which provided a reliable and versatile source of power that could be applied to a wide range of industrial processes. As the Industrial Revolution gained momentum, Britain's landscape was transformed. The rapid growth of factories, mills, and mines led to the emergence of bustling urban centers as people flocked from the countryside in search of employment. Cities like Manchester, Birmingham, and Glasgow became hubs of industrial activity, their skylines dominated by towering chimneys and the thrum of machinery. The impact of the Industrial Revolution was not limited to the textile and manufacturing sectors. Advancements in metallurgy and the production of iron and steel enabled the construction of railways, bridges, and other large-scale infrastructure projects. The development of the steamship revolutionized maritime transportation, facilitating the expansion of global trade and the movement of goods and people across vast distances. The social consequences of industrialization. The profound changes brought about by the Industrial Revolution had significant social consequences, both positive and negative. On the one hand, the increased productivity and economic growth fueled by industrialization led to a rise in living standards and the emergence of a new middle class composed of entrepreneurs, factory owners, and skilled workers. However, the harsh realities faced by the working class, who toiled long hours in often dangerous and unsanitary conditions, gave rise to growing social unrest and the birth of the labor movement. The appalling living conditions in the crowded industrial cities, the exploitation of women and children, and the lack of basic social welfare protections all contributed to the growing sense of discontent among the working population. In response to these issues, various social reformers and political movements emerged, advocating for the rights of workers and the need for improved working conditions, education, and housing. The Chartist movement in Britain, for example, called for universal male suffrage and other democratic reforms, while trade unions began to organize workers to collectively bargain for better wages and working hours. The rise of socialism and communism, as championed by thinkers like Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, provided an ideological framework for challenging the inequalities and class divisions inherent in the capitalist system. These ideas would go on to have a profound impact on the social and political landscape of Europe in the 20th century. The unification of Germany and Italy, concurrent with the transformative changes brought about by the Industrial Revolution, Europe also witnessed the emergence of a powerful force that would reshape the political map of the continent: nationalism. Driven by a desire for unity, cultural identity, and self-determination, nationalist movements began to take hold across Europe, particularly in regions where ethnic, linguistic, and historical ties were strong, but national unity was lacking. Two of the most significant examples of this phenomenon were the unification of Germany and Italy in the mid-19th century. The unification of Germany, led by the Prussian statesman Otto von Bismarck, was a complex and often turbulent process. Bismarck skillfully navigated the political and military tensions between the various German states, eventually forging an alliance that allowed Prussia to establish its dominance and create the German Empire in 1871. The unification of Italy, on the other hand, was a more protracted and multifaceted endeavor. The efforts of revolutionary figures like Giuseppe Garibaldi, combined with the political maneuverings of statesmen like Camillo Cavour, ultimately led to the creation of the Kingdom of Italy in 1861, though the process was not without its challenges and regional divisions. The consequences of these nationalist movements were far-reaching. The newly unified nation-states of Germany and Italy became powerful players on the European stage, altering the balance of power and contributing to the growing tensions that would ultimately lead to the outbreak of World War I. The decline of multi-ethnic empires like Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire was also accelerated by the rise of nationalist sentiment, as ethnic groups within these empires increasingly demanded autonomy and independence. The Industrial Revolution and the transformation of society. The rapid industrialization of Europe during the 19th century had a profound impact on the social and demographic landscape of the continent. The growth of factories, mines, and other industrial enterprises drew vast numbers of people from rural areas to the burgeoning cities, leading to a dramatic shift in the population distribution. The urban centers that emerged as hubs of industrial activity, such as Manchester, Birmingham, and Berlin, experienced rapid and often chaotic expansion as workers and their families sought employment in the factories and mills. The influx of people strained the existing infrastructure and housing, leading to the development of overcrowded, unsanitary, and impoverished slums that became a hallmark of the industrial city. The creation of a new working class, whose labor was essential to the operation of the factories and the broader industrial economy, was a defining feature of this period. These workers, often employed in hazardous conditions for long hours and meager wages, faced significant hardships and exploitation. The growth of labor unions and the emergence of socialist and communist ideologies were, in part, a response to the challenging circumstances faced by the industrial proletariat. Alongside the rise of the working class, the Industrial Revolution also saw the expansion of the middle class, as entrepreneurs, managers, and skilled technicians benefited from the economic opportunities presented by industrialization. This growing social group, with its own distinct cultural and political aspirations, would play a crucial role in shaping the trajectory of European societies in the decades to come. The impact of industrialization was not limited to the economic and social spheres. It also had profound implications for the built environment. The construction of factories, railways, and canals transformed the physical landscape, as previously rural areas were reshaped to accommodate the needs of the industrial economy. The rapid urbanization of Europe led to the development of new architectural styles and urban planning techniques, as cities grappled with the challenges of accommodating large populations and the demands of industrial production. The rise of nationalism and the decline of empires, concurrent with the dramatic social and economic changes brought about by the Industrial Revolution, Europe also witnessed the emergence of a potent political force, nationalism. This sentiment, rooted in a desire for cultural, linguistic, and historical unity, would play a pivotal role in reshaping the political map of the continent. The unification of Germany and Italy, as discussed earlier, were the most prominent manifestations of this nationalist impulse. However, the rise of nationalism was not limited to these two nation-states. Across Europe, ethnic and linguistic groups within multi-ethnic empires, such as Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire, began to demand greater autonomy and, in some cases, outright independence. The growing nationalism within these empires was fueled by a range of factors, including the spread of liberal and democratic ideas, the desire for self-determination, and the perceived injustices and inequalities inherent in the imperial system. As nationalist movements gained momentum, they often clashed with the centralizing tendencies of the ruling regimes, leading to political instability and, in some cases, violent conflicts. The decline of the multi-ethnic empires of Europe was accelerated by the rise of nationalism, as the centrifugal forces of ethnic and linguistic identity began to overwhelm the cohesive power of the imperial institutions. The Austro-Hungarian Empire, in particular, found itself increasingly beset by the competing nationalist aspirations of its diverse populations, ultimately leading to its dissolution in the aftermath of World War I. The impact of nationalism on the political landscape of Europe was profound. The unification of Germany and Italy, for example, created two powerful new players on the European stage, shifting the balance of power and contributing to the growing tensions that would ultimately lead to the outbreak of the First World War. The collapse of the multi-ethnic empires, meanwhile, gave rise to a new generation of nation-states, each with its own unique cultural, linguistic, and political identity. The legacy of the Industrial Revolution and nationalism The transformative changes wrought by the Industrial Revolution and the rise of nationalism have left an indelible mark on the history and trajectory of Europe. These two intertwined phenomena have shaped the continent's economic, social, and political landscape in ways that continue to reverberate to this day. The economic and technological advancements of the Industrial Revolution laid the foundations for the modern global economy, enabling the mass production of goods, the development of transportation networks, and the growth of international trade. The transition from an agrarian to an industrial-based economy had profound social consequences, leading to the emergence of a new working class, the expansion of the middle class, and the challenges of rapid urbanization. The legacy of the Industrial Revolution can be seen in the ongoing debates surrounding the role of labor, the regulation of industry, and the balance between economic growth and environmental sustainability. The struggles of the 19th century working class and the subsequent growth of the labor movement have continued to shape the social and political landscape, influencing the development of social welfare policies and the evolution of modern industrial relations. The rise of nationalism, on the other hand, has had a more complex and often contentious legacy. The unification of Germany and Italy, while marking significant milestones in the political development of Europe, also contributed to the growing tensions and rivalries that ultimately led to the outbreak of World War I. The collapse of the multi-ethnic empires, likewise, gave rise to new nation-states, some of which have struggled to reconcile the competing claims of ethnic and linguistic identity with the imperatives of political and economic integration. In the aftermath of the World Wars, the European project of regional integration, embodied by the formation of the European Union, can be seen as a concerted effort to overcome the divisive forces of nationalism and create a new framework for cooperation and shared prosperity. However, the ongoing debates over national sovereignty, the distribution of power, and the management of economic and social challenges continue to test the resilience and cohesion of this ambitious endeavor. As we reflect on the legacies of the Industrial Revolution and the rise of nationalism, we are confronted with the complexity and enduring relevance of these transformative processes. The economic, social, and political changes they wrought have fundamentally shaped the modern world, and the lessons they offer continue to inform the decisions and policies that will guide the future of Europe and the global community. In the face of the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead, the experience of the 19th and 20th centuries underscores the importance of balancing economic progress with social welfare, of reconciling the claims of national identity with the imperatives of international cooperation, and of forging a vision for the future that is rooted in the hard-won wisdom of the past. As Europe navigates the complex terrain of the 21st century, the legacies of the Industrial Revolution and nationalism will undoubtedly continue to play a pivotal role in shaping its trajectory. World Wars and Modern Europe. The 20th century was a tumultuous and transformative period in European history, defined by the cataclysmic events of the World Wars and the subsequent reshaping of the geopolitical landscape. This era, marked by unprecedented levels of destruction and human suffering, would ultimately pave the way for a new era of cooperation and integration in the form of the European Union. World War, i.e., the Great War. The seeds of World War I were sown in the complex web of alliances, imperialist ambitions, and nationalist fervor that had been building in Europe throughout the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary by a Serbian nationalist in Sarajevo on June 28, 1914, served as the immediate trigger for the outbreak of the conflict. The system of alliances that had developed in Europe over the preceding decades quickly drew the major powers into the fray. On one side, stood the Triple Entente, comprising Britain, France, and Russia, while on the other was the Triple Alliance of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. As tensions escalated and ultimatums were issued, the once localized Austro-Serbian conflict rapidly transformed into a global conflagration. The opening months of the war saw the German forces launch a swift offensive through Belgium, known as the Schlieffen Plan, in an attempt to quickly defeat France before turning their attention to Russia. This strategy, however, was quickly stymied by the resilience of the French and British armies at the Battle of the Marne in September 1914, marking the start of the trench warfare that would come to define much of the conflict. The ensuing 4 years of the Great War were characterized by immense bloodshed and technological innovation on an unprecedented scale. Battles such as Verdun, the Somme, and Passchendaele became synonymous with the horrors of modern warfare as millions of soldiers became trapped in the quagmire of the Western Front, suffering from the devastating effects of artillery bombardments, machine gun fire, and chemical weapons. On the Eastern Front, the Russian Empire initially made significant gains against the Austro-Hungarian and German forces, only to be eventually overwhelmed by the combined might of its adversaries. The entry of the United States into the war in 1917, prompted by the German policy of unrestricted submarine warfare, proved a crucial turning point, tipping the balance in favor of the Allied powers. By the time the armistice was signed on November 11, 1918, the Great War had taken a staggering toll on the European continent. Estimates suggest that over 9 million soldiers were killed, with millions more wounded or missing. The social and economic fabric of the participating nations had been shattered, and the political landscape had been irrevocably reshaped. The Treaty of Versailles and its aftermath. The task of negotiating the peace settlement following the end of World War fell to the victorious Allied powers, who convened at the Paris Peace Conference in 1914. At the heart of these deliberations was the Treaty of Versailles, which would have far-reaching and contentious consequences for the future of Europe. Driven by a desire for retribution and a belief in the need to prevent future German aggression, the Allied leaders, particularly French Prime Minister Georges Clemenceau, imposed a harsh set of terms on the defeated Germany. These included the loss of significant territory, the payment of heavy reparations, the reduction of the German military, and the acceptance of full responsibility for the war. The Treaty of Versailles was met with widespread resentment in Germany, where it was perceived as a humiliating and unjust imposition. The economic burden of the reparations, combined with the loss of territory and resources, crippled the German economy and fueled a growing sense of resentment and nationalism. This, in turn, would ultimately pave the way for the rise of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi regime in the 1930s. The peace settlement also had profound consequences for the other nations of Europe. The redrawing of national boundaries, the emergence of new states, and the weakening of the traditional imperial powers set the stage for further instability and conflict. The collapse of the Austro-Hungarian and Ottoman empires, in particular, led to the creation of new states in Central and Eastern Europe, many of which were beset by ethnic tensions and competing claims. The League of Nations, established as part of the Treaty of Versailles with the aim of preventing future wars, struggled to maintain peace and security in the aftermath of the conflict. Its inability to effectively address the growing tensions and grievances, especially the resentment of Germany, would ultimately undermine its effectiveness and contribute to the outbreak of World War II. The rise of totalitarian regimes. As the interwar period unfolded, the political and economic turmoil in Europe provided fertile ground for the rise of totalitarian ideologies and regimes. The Great Depression, which had devastating effects on the global economy, fueled the growth of extremist movements and undermined the stability of democratic institutions. In Germany, the Nazi Party, led by the charismatic and demagogic Adolf Hitler, capitalized on the country's economic woes and the resentment over the Treaty of Versailles to seize power in 1933. The Nazis quickly consolidated their control, establishing a one-party dictatorship and embarking on a program of nationalist, racist, and militarist policies. The Nazi regime's aggressive expansionist ambitions, driven by a belief in the superiority of the Aryan race and a desire to create a vast Greater Germany, would ultimately plunge Europe into another cataclysmic conflict, the invasion of Poland in 1939, which prompted declarations of war from Britain and France, marked the beginning of World War II. European history is a complex tapestry of triumphs and tragedies, spanning from prehistoric times to the modern era. This analysis will focus on key periods and events that have shaped the continent. Prehistoric in ancient Europe, the foundations of European civilization were laid by early hunter-gatherers, who eventually transitioned to agricultural societies during the Neolithic Revolution. This shift allowed for the development of more complex social structures and the rise of early civilizations. The ancient world saw the emergence of two influential civilizations, Greece and Rome. Greek culture, with its emphasis on philosophy, democracy, and the arts, laid the groundwork for Western thought. The Roman Empire, known for its engineering feats, legal system, and vast territorial expanse, left an indelible mark on European culture and governance. Middle Ages and Renaissance. The fall of the Western Roman Empire in the 5th century AD ushered in the Middle Ages. This period, often mischaracterized as the Dark Ages, saw the rise of feudalism, the dominance of the Catholic Church, and the gradual evolution of new social and political structures. The Renaissance, beginning in the 14th century, marked a revival of classical learning and a flourishing of the arts and sciences. Figures like Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Galileo pushed the boundaries of human knowledge and creativity. The invention of the printing press revolutionized the spread of information and ideas. Age of exploration and enlightenment. The 15th and 16th centuries saw European nations embark on voyages of discovery, leading to increased global trade and cultural exchange, but also to colonization and exploitation of indigenous populations. This era reshaped the known world and had far-reaching consequences for global politics and economics. The Enlightenment of the 17th and 18th centuries emphasized reason, individualism, and skepticism towards traditional authority. These ideas inspired political revolutions, most notably the American and French Revolutions, which introduced new concepts of democracy and human rights. Industrial Revolution and nationalism. The Industrial Revolution, beginning in the late 18th century, transformed European economies and societies. It led to rapid urbanization, technological advancements, and significant social changes, including the rise of a working class and new political ideologies. The 19th century also saw the rise of nationalism, leading to the unification of countries like Germany and Italy, and contributing to the decline of multi-ethnic empires such as Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire. World wars and their aftermath. The 20th century was marked by two devastating world wars. World War I, 1914 to 1918, resulted in millions of deaths and the collapse of several empires. The interwar period saw the rise of totalitarian regimes, including Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy. World War II, 1939 to 1945, was even more catastrophic, with an estimated 60 million deaths worldwide. The war saw unprecedented destruction, including the Holocaust, the systematic genocide of 6 million Jews and millions of others by Nazi Germany. The aftermath of World War II led to a new global order. Europe was divided into Western and Eastern blocs, separated by the Iron Curtain. The Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union dominated international relations for decades. Post-war integration and the European Union. In the wake of World War II, European leaders sought to prevent future conflicts through economic and political integration. This process began with the European Coal and Steel Community in 1951 and eventually led to the formation of the European Union in 1993. The EU has become a unique supranational organization, promoting peace, economic cooperation, and shared values among its member states. It has expanded both in membership and in the scope of its policies, encompassing areas such as environmental protection, social welfare, and foreign policy. The fall of communism and European reunification. The late 1980s and early 1990s saw the collapse of communist regimes across Eastern Europe, symbolized by the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989. This led to the reunification of Germany and the dissolution of the Soviet Union, ending the Cold War and reshaping the European political landscape. Challenges and opportunities in modern Europe. While the EU has fostered unprecedented cooperation and prosperity, it has also faced significant challenges. These include: Number 1. Economic crises, such as the 2008 financial crisis and subsequent Eurozone debt crisis. Number 2. The rise of populism and Euroscepticism in several member states. Number 3. The refugee crisis and debates over immigration policy. Number 4. Brexit, the United Kingdom's decision to leave the EU. Number 5. Balancing national sovereignty with supranational governance. Despite these challenges, the EU continues to play a crucial role in shaping European and global affairs, promoting democracy, human rights, and sustainable development. Lessons and reflections. European history offers several important lessons. Number 1. The dangers of extreme nationalism and totalitarianism, as evidenced by the World Wars and the Holocaust. Number 2. The importance of international cooperation and institutions in maintaining peace and prosperity. Number 3. The value of human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. Number 4. The power of reconciliation and the ability to overcome historical enmities, as demonstrated by post-war European integration. Number 5. The need for sustainable development and environmental stewardship in the face of global challenges. The history of Europe is a testament to human resilience, creativity, and the capacity for both great achievement and terrible destruction. From the ancient civilizations of Greece and Rome to the modern European Union, the continent has been at the forefront of intellectual, artistic, and political developments that have shaped the world. The journey from the devastation of World War II to the creation of the European Union represents a remarkable transformation. It demonstrates the potential for nations to overcome historical conflicts and work together for shared prosperity and peace. As Europe faces new challenges in the 21st century, including climate change, technological disruption, and shifting global power dynamics, it must draw on the lessons of its past. The ideals of democracy, human rights, and cooperation that have emerged from Europe's tumultuous history can serve as a guide for addressing these contemporary issues. The story of Europe is far from over. As the continent continues to evolve, it will undoubtedly face new trials and opportunities. By learning from its rich and complex history, Europe can strive to build a future that honors the sacrifices of previous generations while creating a more just, prosperous, and sustainable world for all. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more documentaries.